Welcome back to the season. We have 2 episodes left. It's hard to believe, man, that we're already to this place. This week, we're kind of preparing for playoffs here coming up. Next week will be our playoff show with Mark Miller and Brett Pickards. And I'm really excited for that, but I'm also sad the season's coming to an end. And then we'll do our final season 1 recap, final episode after that. And I asked you, what is something that you would like to talk about that's important to you that we haven't covered yet? And you responded with networking, connections, improvement. And I thought it was perfect. So why is that topic important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things as a coach, whether you're in your first year or your 20th year, you have to be a lifelong learner, and you have to continually be getting better and growing yourself as a coach and a leader. And I just think over the years, I've been really fortunate to be able to create some great connections with people through the work I do with the Coaches Association to, when I was younger, going and working camps and getting to know people through that. And just finding those people that you resonate with that, are willing to share things they've learned and asking you to share things you've learned. Even some of the more veteran coaches that I've got to know, they'll call and pick my brain and go, "Hey, what are you doing?" Or how would you do this? Or what books have you been reading lately? And I'm doing the same thing with them. And it just, it's one of those things, if your season ends in March here and you have a month or two where now you have some time back and you're maybe not spending a ton of time on your basketball stuff, with summer on the horizon, you're getting some things organized, but you have some free time to be able to really focus on yourself, as a coach and as a person. And, like I said, as a leader. And to me, it's just, it can be a time wasted if you choose to just kind of blow it off and just do whatever else you're doing. But you can really find, a small amount of time every day or every week to put toward, thinking about whether it's X's and O's for the next year, learning something new that maybe you want to add, or a new drill, or maybe it's reading a book on leadership or something that a coach recommends. And I think, it just puts you in a better spot as you continue to lead young men. And I would recommend it for anybody to try to go that route. And I think today we can talk about different avenues to connect with people that can help you do that. So
I've got a great coaching development book that you could read in the off season.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Shameless plug, right?
That's right. Shameless. That's all I'm going to be for the next few months. How long should a coach wait? There's no right or wrong answer here, but in your opinion, how long should a coach wait? Season ends, give yourself a little break, just decompress, do nothing, versus when do you start picking that back up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of up to the coach. I mean, because for March, you're going to be, a lot of coaches go to the state tournament to watch games and connect with other coaches there. So, I mean, some people already start that and like, hey, I'm going to meet up with some coaches that I know and haven't had a chance to connect with in a while. And sometimes you're meeting up to talk about, something important or something that you really want to learn about. But other times just small talk, having fun, like just building that relationship with another coach or a group of coaches that, maybe later on down the road, you're going to reconnect with in the summer and learn something from them or ask them for something. Those state tournaments can be awesome. Certainly for those of you that go to the Final Four, there's a ton of coaches around at the Final Four, and, being able to find some of the events that are going on, where you can, sign up and be a part of an event where you're listening to a speaker, usually a D1 coach or a D1 assistant that has something to share. Those are great opportunities. And it's, while basketball is kind of at its high point, right, in March, and, March Madness, you got, everybody's talking about it, everybody's watching it. And I think that, it's a great time to really dive in right now as soon as your season ends and, while you're excited about, your season may be ending, but, looking forward to what's coming up next in the future for you.
A new leadership kick I'm on is I feel like every single person should be mentoring someone and should be mentored by someone constantly, no matter where you're at in life. If you feel like you're low, find someone that's low too and mentor them. If you feel like you're high, still find someone that's higher and be mentored by them for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just life-giving. I think you owe it to people to give back, and you owe it to people to help out and pass your legacy on to the next generation. Secondly, it's important to mentor someone because it helps you process the things that you think and the things that you do. Like this podcast, for example, I've had times where I've had to really think about, why do I think coaches should X, Y, or Z? Because if I'm going to talk about it, I should probably understand why I think that with the way that I do, and apply some sort of critical thinking to that, which is helpful. Um, Another point, you may never know what person you're going to want to know one day. You may not need someone use that connection for 30 years, but because you establish a connection point. I'll give you an example of that. About 6 years ago on X, I just posted a question about coaching, and Brett Pickards responded, and never knew who he was. And he answered the question. We went back and forth for, I don't know, 10 messages. Then 6 years later, we connected again through the podcast and writing for me. And now we have a professional relationship that never would have started had I not reached out and had him not responded. And you may never know what that connection is going to do for you. So how important to you is that mentorship relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's really important. Through our coaches association, we actually offer a mentor program, and that was a big thing. Coach Pettigrew was big on that, and so he had some veteran coaches that were lined up. And if you're a first or second year coach, you could request a mentor, and he would set you up with weekly to biweekly emails or calls with that person, just to check in, see how you're doing in your first season, second season, off season, things like that. And I've done it a lot actually with former teammates of mine that have gotten into coaching, former players that have went on and wanted to get into coaching, where I know that they're either helping them find a job maybe first and connect with somebody, but also once they get that first head job, like calling them right away, hey, congratulations, if there's something you need, let me know. And a lot of times we have a good enough relationship that it's not just like, hey, I'm doing this like it's a shallow offer of, yeah, call me if you need something. Like, I truly mean it, and they know that. And a lot of times those guys will reach back out and go, hey, I'm just trying to get my youth program set up. Do you have some suggestions, or do you have any things you use that you could share that I could make my own? Or, and so, yeah, we give them everything. It's what do you need? Like, how can I help you? And I've been really proud of, some guys like a Matt Lindsay. He's the head coach up at Mosinee High School. Him and I were high school teammates, and Matt's done an awesome job at Mosinee. But when he got that job, we talked about, here's some things we do. And he's taken it and run with it. And I see him making it his own. Some of the same things that we do, he's changed it and made it his own. And it's great to see that, yourself. I mean, coaching under us here for a while and then getting your own head job. I mean, we talked often your first couple of years and beyond, just touch base and say, hey, Hunter, how can I help you? Or might not even be how can I help you, but what's going on? What do you need to, get off your chest here? You and I are good enough friends. You can talk to me about it, and it doesn't leave here. And that's kind of a nice feeling to have when you feel like you're on an island by yourself and you're not, and I think that's what this off season can be for a lot of coaches, is finding those connections with people that you trust and starting to build those relationships. And, most coaches don't mind if you just call and ask them for something. But to me, I always want to build a relationship first before I start trying to ask for something, just because I feel like I want this to be long lasting, not just a one moment, like, yeah, I'll share this with you and then that's it. So try to find, those guys that you look up to or you watch their programs and go, man, I really like how their team plays. I'd love to sit down and talk to them about something, maybe their press or zone, or, what they do with their culture and their program. And I think those can be, like I said, a really good opportunity in this next stretch of the season or the year here, to make those connections, while you have time to do it before you get busy again in the summer. So,
Like, think about the reasons that you don't make connections. It's usually laziness, fear, or a lack of humility. So the laziness of it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort to scroll through social media, ask people for phone numbers, find emails, craft a strongly worded email that is not a lazy, hey, can I get help? To follow up with phone calls, to send thank you notes. Humility, it is admitting that you are not good enough in your own knowledge, which, newsflash, nobody is. Like, we all have to acquire information from somebody. Nobody coaching that's successful has every single play, every single offense, every single defense, every single game plan tactic that they came up with 100% on their own. They got something from somebody. So we are not, we're not, we're, we cannot assume that we have all the answers. And people that do, and I've met them, and it's a big bummer when I talk to coaches and I recommend a podcast, a book, or something, and they're like, "I'm not really big into acquiring information. I'm kind of good here." And it's like, oh my gosh. And then the third thing is fear of rejection. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They don't respond. Like that's, I think the biggest advantage that I've had going into content writing, podcasting is the lack of fear. I'll reach out to anybody because I know that the worst thing that can happen is they don't respond. And to me, that's okay. That the benefit far outweighs the risk. The benefit is I get a solid mentor or some serious help. The risk is, ah, they didn't respond. And I've had times where I've reached out to some very, very big name, well-known people in the basketball world. I'm talking like NBA, college, and they've responded. It's amazing. And I'm not saying they will respond to anyone, but I wouldn't have gotten to have that interaction had I not shed the fear of rejection and gone, what's the worst that can happen? This person might actually help me. Can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to what you're saying, I mean, the easiest route is, again, your peers, your other coaches at your level, or, at close to your level, or people that you already have connections with. Sometimes your best bet is to connect to somebody you already know to try to get to a person that you want to get to. Like, for example, if someone calls me and goes, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know them. And, I'd really like to talk to them about, their 2-3 zone. Awesome. Let me get an email out. I'll put both of you on it, connect you and, go from there." And, it's something as simple as that. Sometimes you don't have to have the fear of going directly to that person, but maybe you know someone that knows that person that can get you there and give you an introduction. The other thing I would say, that there's not a lot of camps anymore out there, but, I've been a director of the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook Camp with Mark Miller up at Viterbo University for the last 23 years. And every year we hire high school coaches to come work that camp for 3 days. And, when we're done with camp at the end of the night, we grab some dinner and we sit down and we just talk basketball. And there's, 7 or 8 of us. Brett's been there for, 8 or 10 years of this, and he does a great job at that camp. But also, I think he would tell you he looks forward to having those interactions with the other coaches at the end of the night and picking up something basketball wise from a connection. I was blessed to be picked twice now by the NCAA to work the NCAA Basketball Academy, where some of the best kids in the country are coming in and you're giving them to work with. But looking at it, I didn't look at it just as a coaching opportunity. I'm looking at it as, how do I connect with other great coaches from around the country that are coming in to work this camp and not waste my 2-3 days I have there just focused strictly on coaching, but making myself better and growing myself as a coach. And there's some of those people that I've met through that I still keep in touch with. And we had the fortune of, it was a recruiting period, so a lot of the Division I coaches are there and the assistant coaches are there. And there's some guys that I already knew that I'm like reconnecting with them, and then now meeting some new people through them. And, that just, it kind of snowballed. It takes off. And then the last thing, and I know you and I have talked about this, but once you do have that opportunity to talk to someone, like, have some questions ready. It can't just be like an awkward, like, well, now I have you, I'm talking to you, but I don't really know what I want to ask you. Like, you have to kind of in the back of your mind think, like, how am I trying to grow myself as a coach? Is it leadership stuff I want to ask them about? And a lot of times I'll open up with, are there any good books that you're reading right now on leadership, or how that you're going to use to apply to your team next year? Are there any that you would recommend? Like, I really want to focus on this aspect. Do you have something, that a podcast or a book or an article or a site that you go to read some things? Like, because I think you can learn a lot through that, just reading and following different people. And a lot of those coaches, talking to a guy like Shaka Smart pretty often, he'll his staff is great about sharing things, but they follow all kinds of other people. They'll give you suggestions all the time. They go, we follow this guy. Listen to this podcast. I read this book the other day because it was recommended by someone, and they're just great. I mean, they have so many things down there, and they're so gracious with the high school coaches in the state of Wisconsin, sharing and allowing you to come in and be a part of hearing what they're doing. And again, all it takes is an ask or a reach out and go, I want to come to a practice today. Can I do that? Or, get their number and get a text and go, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me? And those guys, again, they're humans. Yes, they coach at a high level and we see them on TV and that, they have a high profile that way. But when it comes down to it, they're just coaches like the rest of us and they want to help other people. And I think that's important to understand that most coaches are kind-hearted and want to help others. It's our nature, right? Because that's what we do with our student athletes. And I just think, the fear can't hold you back. Fear can't be the thief of your joy and development. It's got to be stepping up and going, hey, yeah, this is someone that I really admire and I want to learn from. So I'm just going to ask if they'd be willing to share.
Right. And the biggest thing, there's two big things. Number one, you might have somebody listening going, well, how do I get to know these people? I don't know these people. We didn't start off by knowing these people. We started off by knowing other JV coaches and knowing other varsity coaches and meeting at clinics and getting connected and bouncing. And it's a work in progress. Like nobody's going to just go, all right, I'd really like to talk to Tom Izzo. Let me give him a call today. Like it's a long process to kind of get your foot in the door. The second thing is I can tell right away when someone DMs me and asks for something, if it's selfish or if it's selfless. I know right away. I can go, all right, this person just wants to get on a podcast, or this person just wants me to connect them with this person. And I can tell right away who is genuinely like, hey, I just want to learn. I need help. I need to get connected. I've had situations where there's a guy in the college staff who called and said, I want to be mentored by a Christian coach. Could you mentor me? His posture was perfect. We talked. I was like, you have a great heart, great head. Let's do it. We talk regularly. I've had a University of Viterbo student assistant text and go, hey, can I ask you some questions? I picked up the phone. He had like 6 questions ready to go. And I was like, you're on it, dude. Like that was easy for me to help you out because you know exactly what you're wanting here. So just be ready and be willing and be ready. And then also be gracious afterward because it does take time out of people's day. And it just leaves a bad taste. You don't want the last thing in your encounter to be a bad taste in the mouth. What are some others don't do's as far as networking go for you?
Yeah, I think you hit on the head there. I mean, just, being thankful. It's, a little bit old school to send like a handwritten note after someone takes time to help you with something, but that's something that I used to do is just, throw a handwritten note and send it. It's easy to send a text, easy to send an email. It's quick. And most people, that's the way they communicate now. But sometimes that it's a personal touch to take the time to handwrite something and send it. And just follow back up even. I sometimes you hear from people and you help them and then you don't hear from them again. And you're like, well, I wonder how that went or whatever. Sometimes the follow-up can be really gratifying for the person that helped you to check back in and go, hey, man, that was awesome. I really appreciate it. Like, here's how I used it. Those are all good things there. And, I would also, a couple of things, I guess I would challenge veteran coaches to find some people that could use some mentoring and reach out and offer that up. Sometimes people are afraid to ask you. And, if you know a young coach, don't be afraid to just shoot a message out and go, hey, really hope your year's going well. If there's anything I can do, reach out. Here's my number. Here's my email. If it's something you need, don't hesitate, or even in person's even better. Sometimes I'll run into guys that I know through the Coaches Association are in their first or second year and just run into them at state tournament and say, hey, how was your year? Like just go up and ask them. They don't necessarily know me. We're not friends or anything, but I know who they are and see them. And, I'm just going to take a minute out of my day to go over and see how they're doing. Because chances are nobody's checking in with that young guy to find out how it's going. And they're dealing with maybe parent issues or administrators or a tough group of kids, that first year. So, that 2 minutes that it took me to ask probably meant a lot and probably kept them motivated to want to come back and keep going at it, And I just think sometimes as veteran coaches, we get caught up in our own stuff. Like I got my own team and my own family and all this other stuff to worry about, but it doesn't take much time to be kind and to go above and beyond to ask, someone that could use it. Maybe if they need help. But I would also say, as in the upcoming season here in the spring, there are a lot of opportunities to go to coaches clinics, whether they're online, virtually, or like NABC runs a whole series of them in person throughout the country, where they'll bring in D1 coaches to talk about offense, defense, leadership culture, things like that. Sign up for one of them. Go. That's where you're going to meet people that we're talking about. The connections that we're talking about making are in person at these things. I used to go to a great clinic in the summer called Rising Coaches, and those guys did an awesome job of just networking, connecting, but then also providing people that were going to give you the right messages that you could take something from it take great notes and take something from it and take it home, and use it. So, when you're talking about networking and meeting people that you're going to build these relationships with, if you're just sitting on your couch, they're not going to come to you and find you. Like, you're going to have to get up off your couch and go to some events. You're going to have to go out there, maybe, get involved coaching an AAU team this spring so you can meet some people through that. Maybe it is going to a clinic or a conference, or maybe it's just calling up the coach down the road from the rival school and going, hey, it's Wednesday afternoon. You got time to sit down after school and just talk hoops for a little bit? Like, there's so many good coaches in the high school level around you that if you ask to sit down and talk basketball, I guarantee they'd want to do it. So that just a couple of little things, I guess, that, if you're at home trying to figure out how this could work for you, get a plan together. Those are some things I would recommend.
Right. And I want to support what you just said with a few things. Number one, I would not be coaching today if it wasn't for Cliff Cameron. He's head coach of Pleasant Plains High School right outside of Springfield, Illinois. When I was in college, we met at the FCA Christian basketball camp. And I said, I may want to go into coaching. He said, why don't you come by my practices, see whatever you want to see and stick around. And I was 19 at the time. And I'd go to his practices. He'd won state once. He'd been to state twice. He was one of the leading wins coaches in the area of the state all time. And I didn't deserve any of that, but he decided he was going to help a young kid out. And even during these practices, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He'd look at me and he'd go, Hunter, do you have any thoughts? I'll never forget that. Like, he took the time and had the humility to change my life. And then a story on the other side is I took the route of doing coaches meetings sometimes too. And there was times where, I'm not even kidding you, I'd go to this meeting and I'd ask questions and I'd be curious. And I'd ask them like offense, defense, and then they'd be like, all right, we good here? And I was like, do you need anything from me? No. Like, I know I'm not perfect or a Hall of Fame coach, but I could probably offer you something. You don't say anything, but no, we're good. If you're not curious, if you think you're the one with the answers, your ceiling is going to be significantly lower than a coach that is hungry for answers, that's curious, that has humility. Yeah, imagine how much more information you could acquire. I kid you not. I think one of the biggest things that helped me in my career is I started asking every single coach I played a question. Why'd you do this? What are you doing? What are you thinking? And they'd all give me an answer. I want you to imagine, I've coached against some great coaches, Ken Watkins, Daryl Fox, Daryl Rayfield, all these people. I took the best piece of information from each one of those. That's high quality stuff. They're good coaches. Now I've got a ton of awesome information and I can utilize it to run a zone defense, a man defense. I switched my offenses up. I saw how they practiced. Man, it just, you get so far whenever you're curious and you're willing to ask people. And another thought I had was the value of going to things like the state tournament, even though it can be a bummer to some people, or it can be like, I'd rather watch from home. Why do you think going to state's helpful?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of coaches that come to state and they're there to relax and decompress after their season and just enjoy watching some good high school games. But they're also there to see other coaches, whether it's guys from your conference that you run into or old friends or former coaches, former assistants, things like that. I mean, your own staff, chance to sit down with your own staff and have conversations. It just, again, it's getting out there and being in person and you see someone and it's, it's easier in person to go up to somebody and go, hey, could we find some time this spring to talk? And, that person, most likely, if you get to know them or, have a connection, build a connection at a place like state tournament, they're going to be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I have some time coming up. Let's do it. Send me an email next week. Here's my information, versus sending an email and waiting for them to reply. The in-person route, I think, is best. And, like I said, state tournament, fall clinic for us in our state, I mean, are great opportunities to connect with other high school and, coaches around the state. So,
I think there's a
um,
lot of value in doing, um, finding people you trust and doing some sort of book study, some sort of mentorship check-in, like a solidified, we talk every Tuesday morning. I think the more you can structure it, the better it is as well. Um, that gives you more longevity. If you just fly by the seat of your pants, you usually stop the first time you get busy, and having some sort of process. I just think there's a lot of value in that. That's the shameless plug. That's why I wrote the book the way I did. The second half of it, after each chapter, is discussion questions for coaching staffs or even coaches to go through together. Because I loved like Bible study books that you'd ask questions and you talk. It's just not like that for coaches. You kind of have to read and be like, what did you think about what you read? But this is like surefire questions to get a discussion going with your staff. What are we, in what areas should we be more accountable? What ways are we modeling? Humility, all these things. What players should we be looking at for leadership, and how do we get them in those spots? I think those are really good ways to get a conversation going. Is there anything else as far as connections, clinics, camps, that you didn't get
no,
to?
no, but just a quick story if we have time, about my own personal journey here. Like I said, I'm in year 19 as a head coach, 23 overall. But when I was 20 years old, I was playing in college at the time. And in the summer, I wanted to just work a bunch of basketball camps to make money and to gain experience and everything. And one of the guys I reached out to at that time was Jerry Pettigrew. As a 20-year-old, like I knew of Jerry. We didn't have a close relationship because I just graduated high school a few years before. And he used to run a camp at Beloit College called the Tri-State Basketball Camp. And it was a team camp where teams came in and played against each other over a couple days, stayed in the dorms. And I just reached out and said, if you need any help with your camp, I'd love to come in, whether it was reffing or doing laundry or whatever he needed. I was like, I just wanted to be a part of it and be around it. And I knew Jerry was a legend and wanted to, even just be around him and learn from him. And it ended up happening that he had a team, Fenimore High School, didn't have a coach to come with their kids. So as a 20-year-old, he gave me a varsity team and he's like, you're going to be coaching these guys at team camp. And so like I came into it ready to go. I had things I wanted to try to put in place and run with those guys offensively and defensively. And just, and it was like a 3-day, like, here we go. We get to coach varsity, and just see where I'm at and see what I can do as a 20-year-old kid. So it was awesome. It was such a great opportunity. And I didn't even realize at the time the fact that Jerry gave me that opportunity to come there. I got to spend 3 days and get to know him a little bit and some other coaches around there. Al Sheevy from Slinger was another legendary coach up that was around working that camp and being there. And it turned into a friendship with Jerry. As a 20-year-old, I started building that relationship that year. And 25 years later, I'm talking on the phone with Jerry weekly, before he passed, as part of the Coaches Association and working with him side by side and in that capacity. And it had just became such went from being trying to pick his brain and learn from him to a friendship and with him and his wife, Joan. And it just, you never know, taking the opportunity to ask someone to give you an opportunity, you never know where it's going to go and what it's going to lead into. And I will say, if I didn't take the chance to, I didn't even have his home phone number. I wrote a handwritten letter asking if I could work his camp, and he called me back, and I'm like, if I didn't take that chance to ask, I maybe wouldn't have ever had some of the opportunities that I've had in my career, that Jerry's, been a huge part of, and other guys that I've connected to through Jerry then, that I've got to become really good friends with, like a John Nedelkoff and some of the other board members in the WBCA. And again, just to give you guys, I'm only telling the story just to give you a snapshot. If you're a young coach, like, you can't be afraid to put yourself out there and then to go work. Like, nothing's free. Like, I wanted to go work that camp. I wanted to go be a part of it and gain experience and be a part of that camp, knowing that everything I could get back in return was going to be valuable. But I had to give up 3 days of my time. Yeah, I got paid to work the camp, but I had to give up 3 days of my summer to go do that. But it was worth it. It was something that I was passionate about and wanted to do. And again, parlayed that into some really awesome relationships and friendships that carried on over the years. And so I would just, challenge again our coaches that are watching, like, if that's something that's important to you, then show up and get involved and be a part of something. And and those connections will happen. And the mentorship piece that you're talking about, it'll become obvious who you want to mentor you, because you'll meet enough people that you'll go, you know what, I'm similar to that guy. I think that'd be a really good person for me to keep picking their brain and keep in touch with.
That's exactly how a great legacy is left. Someone said, "Let me help you," to someone else. That's really it. And that sounds so easy, but we just missed the boat on that. It also took humility, eagerness, a willingness to work on your end. It was not handed to either of you in that situation. You had to make a conscious decision. I need help, or I want to give help. And I think that's what makes the world go round. Next week, we'll have our playoff preview. Mark Miller, Brett Pickerts, myself breaking down the bracket. Then the following week, there's two options. I'll either be talking about Jay's matchup in the playoffs, or we'll be talking about the Wisconsin playoffs, recapping season and things like that. I hope the best for you. Finish the season strong, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's the home stretch right here. And, anybody that can get playing well this time of year has an opportunity, and that's all you can ask for, is to have a chance. And yeah, I like where our guys' heads are at right now. Hopefully we can get it rolling these last couple of weeks and right into tournament. So
You can steal this if you want. I used to tell my teams, when we were maybe a lower seed, I'd say the term Cinderella exists for a reason. It happens to somebody. Why can't it be us? Every year there's going to be a Cinderella. It could be us. It could be us. There's a reason that word is used. Anyways, we'll see you guys next week for the tournament talk.